This is a course navigation video for FlexPace Math. So if you're taking a Math 096, 098, or Math 104 course as a FlexPace class, you're going to see a screen that looks like this when you log in. And typically your course home would look like this. Once you're here, the course calendar is listed, the course navigation document, which you may have found this video in that document, are here, and the course assignments. So let's take a look. I'm going to open the course calendar here just so we can see it. And the course calendar kind of gives you an idea of what you should do when. This example is for Math 096. If you're in 098 or 104, it's similar. For 096, we expect you to spend a minimum of 9 hours a week working. If you're working in Math 098 or 104, it's a 4 credit hour course instead of 3 credit hours, so we expect you to work 12 hours. But make sure you take a look at that. And if you look at the daily calendar, it'll show you, exactly what you should be working on each day. So for the first day, it says the orientation in Mod 13, 13.0, then 13.1, 13.2, and these are different sections in the course. So you can view the course calendar here, or you might find it provided from your instructor if you have a class in person, or you might also see it in your instructor's Brightspace course if you have an online section. The course navigation document is, really going to take you through step by step what you're doing in this video, but you can look at that and read through it so you know what to do in the course. And the course assignments is where you're going to spend most of your time. So I'm going to click on course assignments here. The first thing you should do is the MyMathLab orientation. If you haven't done anything in MyMathLab before, this would be the first place to click. You're going to click the MyMathLab orientation here, and then a new pop-up will occur. There's a video to watch, and then there's a homework assignment. And the homework assignment really just gets you used to inputting things. And then from there, you're going to follow the course calendar on what to do each day. So, if you looked at that course calendar we saw before, we started in Mod 13, in Mod 13.0. So it says click below for your assignments. You'll click here to get to your assignments for the class. And for each section that you see, 13.0, 13.1, and so on, you'll see there's a video and notes, and then there's a homework. In the video and notes, if you click on there, you'll see the different videos to watch, and then you'll see the notes. You should probably click the notes first. This will give you a PDF, so you can see, you can print this. You could also get this from the bookstore if you ordered the optional notes for the class. But you can print this out and take your own notes in here, or you could also just take your notes on your own paper or your own notebook. Just make sure you keep it organized if you do. But the videos go along with the notes for the most part. And if a video comes up, make sure you take a look here. You can click on video at the top. You can play it, watch the example it goes through. There's guided examples here, so make sure you go through those as well. You can follow through and learn some of the processes. And there's different examples, so make sure you click through those. And there's a study guide at the end, kind of giving you a summary. And that's in a pop-up window, so make sure you close that, and then you can go to the next video and so on. You have to watch all of these to move on to the next part of the course. So once you've done that, if you go back to the previous page, you can see, the homework here. Now, if you notice, I have a flag here. It says you must do the orientation before I do the homework. Because I'm the instructor, I'm able to bypass this, but if you ever see a flag next to an assignment, it tells you what you need to do. For example, if you do 13.0 homework, then 13.1 will open up after you have a 90% on there, and so on. So you'll see those flags there. It means you missed something that you had to do prior to it. So make sure you read what that says. When you look at the homework for 13.0, I'll be able to get into it as the instructor without doing the prereq. But if you look at the questions, you should always be able to get 100 on the homework, really. So, we list a question here, and you need to type in an answer. So if you get it incorrect, I'm going to purposely get these wrong so you can kind of see what's available to you. So let's say I just said the answer was 3 here. Okay, so it says that's incorrect. It gives you kind of a tip on what to do next. It may or may not apply to your mistake, but it gives you a little tip. Then let's say you try again and you guess a different answer, or you type in a different answer. Again, they'll give you another attempt. And then let's say I guess again, another wrong answer. Okay, so they tell me the correct answer now. And then it asks me if I want to do a skill builder, and that's kind of take you back a step. It's not going to do the same type of problem. It'll do a problem like this is kind of leading into this skill. You could choose to do skill builder or not. That's up to you. But if you X out the box, you'll notice you got the question wrong. There's a little X there saying it's incorrect. Now remember, you need to get a 90% on this or better to move on to the next assignment. So what you can do is, hit similar question down here, and you will get a new question that's very similar but have a different problem, different numbers. So let's say I'll try to get this one correct this time, maybe. and I'll check my answer. I got it correct. Well done. Notice I got the green check mark. Notice I have a green check mark here. Now I've got correct for question 1. So you don't have to go through, you don't have to feel like you got it wrong completely. You can get it wrong and then try again and get it correct. You can always do that on the homework assignments, redoing them until you get 100. Let's say you didn't know how to do a question. There's this get more help button here. This says ask my instructor. That'll send an email to your instructor. So if you're in class, you wouldn't want to click that. If you're an online student, you may want to click that. If you're really struggling on the question, you want to ask your instructor. Hit ask my instructor. A little pop-up box will show up. You can type in what, give some context of what error you're getting or why you're not getting it correct. And then the instructor will respond to whatever email address you registered for in My Math Lab. That should be your last resort, though, in terms of getting help because it's not instant. So you may want to try the Help Me Solve This option, which will take you kind of step by step and give you some information on how to go through the problem. And then if you fill in different pieces of this, they'll mark you correct or not correct, depending on what you're doing. And if you went through, you can follow through this whole process. Maybe I'll get this one wrong just to show you what happens. Okay, so it says, maybe you should be doing this, and it tells you, here's how to approach it. So, it's giving you feedback as you go through a problem so you can kind of learn from the software. Now, once I've done that, notice it marked the question wrong, though, because I did the Help Me Solve This. So now it gave me a new question here. So it kind of forced you into that similar exercise type thing where you can go through and practice it yourself. And then if you get it correct, you get it correct. You could also click View an Example. Same type of thing as the Help Me Solve This, but it's a different problem, not necessarily the one you see. And again, the Ask My Instructor. So the helps are all down here in the lower left. I would recommend using the first two first and then asking my instructor if you're really stuck. If you're in a classroom setting and you're doing this, you can, call your instructor over. And you have a question by putting a blue cup up on your monitor and they will come over and help you. If you're online, you should send that, send that Ask My Instructor message to your instructor so they know what you need help with and they can follow up with a response. But that's how you go through the homework. Now you're going to continue through the homework. I'm going to leave this. You can go in and out of it as much as you want until the last day of class. So you can get these, you can do this piecewise. It doesn't have to be done in one sitting. And if I go back out into the Mod 13 assignments here, just so you can see it, I would follow through and follow the whole path. Take the video notes, do the homework, video notes, do the homework, and so on. You have to get a 90 on each homework to move on to the next one. And you go through all of that. Once you get to the bottom here, there's a practice assignment. And for the practice, typically there's nothing really blocking you except for the previous module. In this case, take the practice. What's blocking you is the orientation. But the practice is really not part of the course in terms of how you go through it, but it gives you a way of either getting optional practice that you might want, so you're getting extra practice, or a way of kind of bypassing the homework. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But what happens is once you've gone through all the homework, through 13.10 for this first module, the next thing you want to do is go back to that where you click Module 13 and it says click here to complete your module quiz. Now, if you remember on the calendar, the last thing for each section is a module quiz, which you would find by clicking there. The module quiz is here. Now, this is different. I'll go into it, but you would have to go through and finish the homework, right, with a 90% here. Or it says if you get 100 on the practice, you can do it. So if you get 100 on the practice, that's kind of a way of bypassing doing the homework for the module. Think of it almost as a way of like qualifying to take your test early or taking your quiz early. But I would recommend going through the actual homeworks if you've never seen the material before, because if you just try to do the practice, you won't have all the videos and notes that you need and all the practice, the actual practice you need on assignments. But I'm going to be able to get into the quiz. So I'm going into the quiz and it says, okay, the Module 13 quiz, 30 questions, and it tells you what you need to do if you haven't done it yet. Or what this is a prerequisite for, I should really say. I have unlimited attempts at the quiz, but the quiz doesn't have the helps. So if I start this quiz, you may notice I have the questions here, and there's no helps down at the bottom here. So you have to answer the questions. So if I answer the questions, I'm just making up answers. You don't hit a, submit answer here. You hit next, but you're not going to know if your question is right or wrong. Whereas in the homework, you know instantly if it's right or wrong. So I can go through, answer the questions, make things up for now as I'm doing it. But when you do it, make sure you do pay attention to it. It's not timed. But at the end of the quiz, once you've gone through all the questions, you hit submit quiz up here. If you're not able to finish all of this in one sitting, you don't have to, as long as you just X out of the window. If you do that, it'll say changes may not be saved. They will save any questions you answered, but If you hit submit quiz, that's going to submit whatever you have. So if you have blank answers, you can't go back. You have to start over again. So I'm going to hit submit quiz just so you see what happens. So it tells you if you have incomplete answers, but I'm going to submit it anyways. When I submit the quiz, look, it gives me all these X's, everything I got wrong. The ones with the little parentheses means ones I didn't even try. Once you do a quiz, you have to get if you're in Math 096, a 75% to move, or an 80%, I'm sorry, for Math 096 to move on to the next module, a 75% for Math 098 or Math 104 to move on to the next module. So in this case, to move to module 14, I would need for 096 an 80%. To move to module 14 for Math 098, you'd need a 75%. And then first module in Math 104 is module 19, so it starts at a different number, but the same idea in terms of how you would go through it. So if you look at these, you can review the test. So you can actually go back and look at what you got wrong. And if you do review it, you can see, okay, here's the correct answer, and then the helps are there, so you can actually kind of view how they went through and did it. Once you've done that, though, remember I said you have to pass this to start the next module. So that's why you have an infinite number of attempts. You should take the quiz again, and you'll start the test again, and you take it over and over again until you get the required score to move on. The only other thing here that I would mention is that, if you wanted to, as I said earlier, if you felt like, let's say you were familiar with you started module 13, but you're familiar with this work in here, you might want to try the module practice. The practice is like one really big homework, and you can go through and do it. It's got a lot of questions, and it's about everything that's in the section. But if you get 100 on this, and it has to be 100, not 99, not 92, 100, then the quiz will open for you, and you could just jump to the quiz and you could skip some of the material. I only recommend this path if you're someone who already knows some of this material and already feels comfortable with it. I wouldn't recommend it otherwise, because you'll actually end up slowing yourself down because you won't pass the quiz. So when you go through a module, you do all the homeworks, then you will get to the quiz, and then the last thing, if you look at the course calendar, and I'll pull this back up again here, at the end of a module, you'll see this Mod 13 WA, and everyone has a WA at the end. The WA stands for written assignment, and I'd read all this in the calendar below it. The written assignment itself, typically is found in your instructor's Brightspace course if you're an online student, or you'll have it in the classroom if you want a paper copy. And those are written work that should be done on your own, no helps, no outside tutors, no, solving applications, anything like that, that you submit to your instructor. If you're online, your instructor will have somewhere for you to submit those online. If you're in person, you can just hand it to your instructor. But that's the last thing that you have to do in each module before you move to the next one. Moving on to the next modules, you go into 14.1, 14.2, and so on, and continue through the course. Once you do that, once you get through the first two modules, and again after the next two modules, you're going to have what we call proctored test. Now the proctored test, if you go to the course assignments, will be here. You can see Mod 13, 14 proctored tests. These are going to be tests that you do in MyMathLab, but they're proctored, meaning they're going to be written on paper. When you do the quizzes, you're doing those on your own, and you don't have to submit anything out other than submitting it in the computer. Here for the proctored test, you're going to do them on the computer, but you are going to have a proctor, so you'll have your professor there with you, or if you're an online student, some like testing center proctor or an approved proctor by your instructor, to watch you go through and take the test. So you're going to have to show work and all of that. So when you're practicing earlier, when you're doing the homework and the quizzes, you should be showing all that work for yourself, so this way you know how to do it when you get to the test. There's practice assignments, a practice homework, and a practice review here, just like the ones we just saw. These are for you to practice only. They're optional, but the proctor test is one attempt. There's information here about what you need to pass on it. It happens after the first two modules in each course, and again after the second two modules in each course. And so it's password protected. So on your exam day, you'll click where it says proctored test when you're ready for it. And you'll see there's that review assignment that I mentioned before. It's optional, but test itself is right here. If you click on that, now I don't have the prereq because I didn't do it, but you got to make sure that you pass the first two modules with an 80%. That's what this is really showing here. And then if I hit continue, it asks for a password. Now your instructor or your proctor will have the password. This isn't something that you'll type in yourself. They'll type it in for you. And then once the password's typed in, you will be able to take the test. And again, when you take the test, it'll look just like the quiz that you took in terms of how you would submit your answers. All going to be one long thing, and then so you can't see answer by answer if you got it correct. You'll have to go question by question. There are no helps. And then when you take this, you'll have a testing packet where you'll write down all the work. This way you can earn partial credit. Otherwise, the computer only knows if you got it right or if you got it wrong. So you want to show the work so you can earn partial credit, and also show the work because you could lose credit if you don't show the appropriate way to solve something, if you had just guessed or worked your way through it that way. So you want to make sure you show your work when you take the proctored test. But that comes up after the first two modules and then the second two modules. So that's 13 and 14 and 15 and 16 for 096 and 098. For 104, those will be modules 19, 20, and then 21, 22. Lastly, there's a final exam, so you're going to keep working through the course as you do that. And by the way, for these proctored tests, maybe I should mention this. I said it as I looked at it earlier, but you have to score a minimum score. So on 13, 14, and on 15, 16, if you're in 096, you have to score an 80% or better to move on to your next assignments, right? If you don't, you have to retake these tests. So you want to make sure that you do well on them and you study and you practice, especially because they count for 18% of your overall grade each. And then, you have to get a 75 on these tests for 098 or 104. But again, you want to make sure you do well because they count for, 18% of your overall grade. And then you'll continue through the course doing all the homeworks as we mentioned, taking the quizzes, submitting the written assignments, and working your way through getting to the next proctored test, and then eventually to a final exam. When you get to the final exam, it works just like the proctored test, except for instead of it being 50 minutes, 120 minutes. But the same type of idea. It's going to be proctored. It's going to be password protected. You're going to have someone type it in for you. There's practice assignments here for it. So that's how you would approach the class and how you work through it. One of the main things I would say, just wrapping things up here, is that you have a course calendar and it tells you which dates are on here. And what's due when. Now, these are not hard deadlines. That's what makes this flexible pace. But you can't wait till the last day of class when all the assignments are due to say, okay, I'm going to finish this, or the last week of class, or the last 2 weeks. You'll never complete the course. The reality of it is that you should be working on this course every day, and if you do slow down, then you should be making a plan to catch up. And if you work quicker, you should probably try to keep working more quickly through the course because you can finish early. Many students don't finish though, and part of the reason they don't finish is because they don't follow the calendar, and it's very easy to procrastinate because there's no hard deadline on any of these assignments. In a traditional classroom, you have deadlines each week, so you're going to do the homework right when it's due, or you're going to submit your quizzes when they're supposed to be submitted. Here, because of the flexible pace, it's really important that the student takes the responsibility of working on the course every day. Even if you have another course assignment due for a different class, you have an English paper, or if you have something in your business class, or economics, or chemistry, whatever it might be, the most important thing is that you're still working on your math and don't put it off. Don't try to prioritize things that are due versus things that aren't, because really, if you fall behind in this, you won't pass the class. And if you don't pass the class, your grade is an F at the end. You don't get credit for what you've done. You only get credit if you finish. So keep that in mind. The calendar is here to help you. Students who do well stay on pace with the calendar or move a little bit quickly. If you slow down at any point in time, there's a chance you won't finish the class, and that's really important to know. It's very important to follow this calendar. It's very important to manage your time. It's probably the most difficult part of a flex-based class for students is not necessarily the material, but the time management. So I would just say I recommend set a time each day you're going to be working on math, or a couple days a week that you're going to be working on math, and then have a day where you plan to take the tests. When you see a test coming up, decide when that's going to be for you. When you see a quiz coming up, decide when that's going to be for you, just so you can have that structure. So I'll wrap this video up here, but hopefully I give you an idea of how to approach our class. If you have questions, make sure you do ask your instructor, because they will be able to better tell you exactly what's due when, and different policies in their classroom.